We're live.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
We got
cool.
class number 2.
All right, Chris, we ready? Jesus Christ. Sorry, I know you.
I'm sorry.
Time is crunched too. So it's 2:15. So you good? Because we're going till 3:15.
Okay.
That's good for you.
Yes.
Okay. Chris, you ready?
All right, so
Turn on the mic. Turn on the mic on.
Your volume is up on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome to the Empower Hour. 15 minutes behind time, but we are here. My name is Al Quamar.
And I'm Hanifa.
And we are your hosts for the Empower Hour, where we take 1 hour out of your busy schedule midweek and come to you with impactful topics of discussion that affect our everyday lives. Today we have in the studio our special guest, Brother Solomon. Solomon, how do you pronounce your last name?
Comissiong.
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 Well,
Comissiong.
actually, interesting enough, where I'm from, in Trinidad, it is pronounced Comissiong.
Okay.
But where my grandparents are from, which is Grenada, it's
Okay.
more commonly pronounced Comissiong.
Comissiong. That's so unique. Brother Solomon is an educator. He's a community activist, author, founder of the Your World News Media Collective. He's also a founding member of the Pan-African Collective for Advocacy and Action. Solomon is the author of A Hip-Hop Activist Speaks Out on Social Issues. He's also the writer and producer of the documentary Hip-Hop, White Supremacy, and Capitalism: Why Corporations Infiltrated Rap Music. So we're talking to Solomon today about apathy. Is minding our own business killing us? And I am so excited about this topic. I found myself really anticipating this program today because it's so near and dear to my own heart. Because, and now, granted, there's a lot of us out there that are doing the work. Mm-hmm. You're a prime example. Hanifa's, dealing with the children on a daily basis. And so it's a lot of people out there that's doing their part. But at the same time, I think we can all agree that if more of us were doing our part, we wouldn't be in this particular situation or circumstances as we are now in this society. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Apathy. Is minding our own business killing us? And the reason we wanted you on this program because you did an excellent op-ed. You resent it because I noticed that it was done back in 2014.
Yeah.
And you resent it out on social media, and I had the opportunity to read it, and I was really struck by it because it had so many pertinent, powerful, impactful, points in it as it relates to what we're talking about. So the topic, I think I had written it down. You had the name of the op-ed that you named it. Do you remember offhand? It was.
It had apathy, and I should remember because that's one of the pieces that's.
And I wrote it down, but nevertheless, one of the quotes you had in it, you said, true revolutionaries as well as social justice champions can never expect those who benefit from an unequal society to give a damn about the perspectives of the historically oppressed. So that was one of the points that really stuck out for me. So, did you want to start with first of all,
definitely.
Why did you write that piece?
And the name of the article is How Apathetic Americans Accommodate Injustice.
Yes.
And so, first, before I say anything, you sisters are doing it right now. This in its essence, I mean, our ancestors who paved the way, who did some amazing things for independent, black media, are smiling right now because this is so important. And I know there's a lot of brothers and sisters throughout the country that are doing independent media, and that's important. It's really important for us to support one another. I have an independent media network, and it's important for us not to act like white folks and be in competition like some capitalist vultures, but to support each other. And week after week, you guys do some amazing stuff and have some
Thank
amazing
you.
guests on your programs that are exposing people in our community to invaluable information that can help them navigate these pitfalls that are set up for us in America, and we can start to build stronger communities for ourselves and our future.
I agree. I say.
So the article itself, a lot of times articles will ideas for articles will come to me in the middle of the night or even the middle of the day. Something will just it might be some feelings that I've been wrangling with, and something will just kind of pop into my head, and this was no different. This was something that had just quite frankly been pissing me off for a long time. Just seeing folks that reside within this country, and even more so people within our community, people within the African community inside the United States, just taking a laissez-faire attitude towards a lot of things, and even making excuses. If it's something that we criticize during one regime, during the Bush regime, all of a sudden when it's being done by somebody with a brown face, whether it's imperialist war, whether it was the Obama administration, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and the rest of them bombing Libya, because we know that if it was Bush or if McCain had won or Romney had won, and they started bombing Libya, you would have folks in the street saying, rightfully so, saying like, look at this, they're bombing our ancestral homeland. Look at this, it's based on a bunch of lies. There's no evidence whatsoever Gaddafi was about to, start, killing his people. This is based on the fact that, they didn't want AFRICOM in the country. They wanted, if you want to buy our oil, you need to, and they would be out in the streets. But
and that's just one example out of many. And
there was no shortage, as you remember, there was no shortage of excuses.
Right.
Saying, oh, he had to, had to do it, and this, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You didn't say that with Bush. You didn't say he had to do it. You didn't say nothing. And,
Right.
And if that's the case, and even if that's the case, please don't stop juxtaposing his picture sandwiched between Dr. King and Malcolm X,
Right.
because they wouldn't have taken that job.
Right.
And if they did take that job, and as soon as those shadow forces say this is what's going to happen, you have to, collateral damage, we have to take out some innocent civilians. The majority of people killed in these airstrikes and drone attacks are going to be innocent civilians, but we're going to achieve our gain.
Right.
I'm quite certain they would have walked away from it. I know I would have walked away from it.
So that's a good point.
So
why do you think, though, so many of us are so apathetic to the plight of our own personal existence?
I think we've become comfortable. Comfortable, and as Malcolm X, one time said, he said, to paraphrase him, he said it's like this, he had the analogy about going to the dentist and getting shot with that Novocaine. You suffer peacefully. So right now we know that people within our communities, what we see on TV, whether it's Oprah Winfrey or Denzel Washington, whoever, they are the minority of the minority within our communities. We see every single day. You can just walk outside and go down the road, and you see people in our community struggling economically, struggling. Their communities are governmentally neglected, have been redlined, and so forth. Schools decrepit, and so forth. But we suffer peacefully because there have been so many distractions, and we've kind of we've settled into the narrative that white liberals have put out there for us. Only want you to go so far. Their definition of being progressive in terms of where race is concerned is that they don't use the N-word. But the more nefarious thing, but they will go into your community, they will redline it, they will gentrify it. They will, as we know, Democrats, as much as Republicans, supported the prison industrial complex. They will warehouse our women and men in U.S. prisons left and right. But because you don't use the N-word, we're supposed to see you as such and such. So anytime we speak out against injustices that are being inflicted to our communities and brothers and sisters in our communities, we're told by white liberals and white conservatives alike, we're lambasted, and they'll put us out in the media, and instead of, as we talked offline, instead of insulating brothers and sisters, like even looking at Colin Kaepernick in mass and saying like, listen, to hell with you. I don't care, you know what I'm saying, what you say. You know, I'm going to speak out.
Right. In a lot of instances, though, our own people will join the party and hushing the voices.
You're right.
But is it because I'm listening to you, and there's a lot of information here, and I'm listening to you speak on several different things, and what comes to my mind is how many people know this information, right? Is it apathy, or is it really ignorance, like lack of knowledge for a lot of people? Because really the information is out there, which a lot of us say, but a lot of people, do they have the time to access the information, or are they busy out there trying to keep their head above water? Because I feel like I see that more often than not, where it's like, I just don't have time. I don't have time to read that book. I don't know. My baby needs to eat. I need to be at work. You know what I mean?
So
is it really apathy? Right. Is it like deliberate ignorance?
Well, that's an excellent point. Malcolm X, again to paraphrase Malcolm X, I mean, he at one time said, we can't be mad at anybody who does not have information that we have, because at one time we didn't know what we know now.
Right.
However, the critique comes in is that when you are presented with this information, and I have far too many examples of people who, just like I, at one point didn't have this information, but then when that information was presented by myself or somebody else that was in the general company that I was keeping at the time, their first visceral reaction was to come to the defense of the empire, come to the defense of white supremacy. And my thing is, why are you having this visceral reaction before you do the due diligence? I'm presenting something to you that you have just, rightfully so, said that you didn't know about. But why are you coming to the defense without asking where I got this information or doing your own research?
Could it be because deep down for a lot of us, if we dig far enough, we have to then change something within our own lives.
You have to do something about it.
You have to do something about it, and we're not ready.
Yeah.
So as opposed to doing something, or at least going further to gain the information, you close off completely.
You have to give up some things too.
Good point.
So,
you may have to give up some things, and it's
You're right.
Am I ready to do so?
You guys are exactly right, and I'll give you one of the easiest examples to put out there. You look at U.S. holidays. Okay.
Right.
I grew up. I didn't know the information I know now. I grew up. Enjoying celebrating.
Right.
The 4th of July and such, and what we know of different holidays. Throughout the year. Even looking at the one that just passed, Christmas. But then when this information was presented to me, as a teenager, about 4th of July, and a brother putting it into perspective to me. Like, our ancestors were in chains and shackled, and were in chains, and they were shackled, and they were subsisting in a hell on earth in 1776. These white folks were damn hypocrites, because, and also the Native Americans, the indigenous people that you see on my shirt, they were steadily having their land taken from them, and were embroiled in their own Holocaust and genocide, being killed off. How can we celebrate the 4th of July? This has nothing to do with our emancipation.
Right.
And so when that information was presented to me, and maybe it's because it was presented to me at such an early age, in my latter teen years, because the older you get, if you don't have any intervention, you have more and more, you have ignorance caked on.
Right.
And then, as you know, people in our own age groups, when you present that to them, if they're not wired the right way, they don't want to break out of that. Where a young person is like, it's easier. It's a very thin, whatever, so it was kind of easy for me to break out of that and say, I'm not supporting this holiday in this manner ever again.
Right. So is it then adaptation?
That we've adapted to.
Is it acceptance? Are you just accepting of, even if, it's not to your best interest and benefit, you still go on with it? What do you?
Because I think you're right. If it's not to your best interest and benefit, but most people don't realize it's not to their best interest and benefit, and I think that's what I'm getting at. Like, if I think it is for my best interest and benefit, if my survival depends on it, at least that's the way I think.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way.
Right.
Of course, when you present certain information and it becomes a threat to that, it then becomes a threat to my survival. And so therefore I'm going to defend it, right? I might even kill for it, which we see sometimes, right? Because this is my life, in my mind, it's an illusion. A lot of our people are kind of in this like sleep mode, you know, almost like hypnotic,
right?
You know, and so when you're speaking to them, it's sort of like it's not getting through. Like you said, they'll rise up and defend that. My other question is, because I see this a lot when you just mentioned like our age group. Should we be really? I don't want to act like I'm dismissing or ignoring a certain demographic here. Or should we be more focused on the younger ones?
Yes. I was stop you right there. Yes.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
You know, I love our people. You know, I love our community, but you know, the youth are the future. And if we can be selfless for a moment, then we're going to think about the future and making sure that we plant and cultivate, you know, and expose these young people to seeds, critical thinking seeds that will enable them to critically analyze, you know, the situation that they're in, expose them to the thoughts and perspectives and ideologies of brothers and sisters that came along before us, so that they can, you know, ultimately start to navigate and build in a way that our generation, quite frankly, hasn't done completely. Right. So I without a doubt, I think the youth, that's where it's at, because it's much easier. I mean, I've done workshops all over the country and even internationally, and you know, no diss to people in our own age group or even older, but the most fruitful experiences that I've had have been workshops that I've done with high school students, middle school students, and so forth, because they're wide open. Right. I mean, they take in the information and they ask they ask the most obvious questions that people, that when I do it with folks at our own age, will never ask. Will never ask. Right. Well, we'll ask the most obvious questions, and you know, you expose them to this information, say about who Columbus was, and then they'll say, then why would they name a city after him? Right. Why would they name this after him? Why would they name this after him? And most of the times I don't have people in our own age group that will even think of asking that question.
But won't it have to be some very impactful teachers to get to these young students? Because my thought goes to, well, they still have to go home. They still spend the vast majority of their time. They have summers off, they have holidays and other things, that the vast majority of their time is spent with adults who, in a lot of instances, are apathetic. So, you know, so how do you then, even in reaching the youth, how do you make it stick to the point where, because now
they have to go home.
Yeah. So, you know, because if their environment is with people who really don't care much about the plight of our existence, and theirs too, because they are inheriting this existence, and it's not getting any better.
You're right.
It works though. If I could speak to that, it works, because I've seen it in my own community. That's kind of how I got involved in Rastafari, because it swept over the island, and it was just a bunch of young people educating each other. So teenagers learn from each other. So if you can get like a certain like amount of youth, that's who you want to use to reach the youth, because there's a gap between the older generation and the younger, and it's almost like we seem to can't get that, close that gap, because the older are afraid of the younger, oftentimes, and we're not engaging them. Right. But that's really who based on what you're saying, it's hard to get that information in when they get older. So we need to be getting it in as early as possible. Yeah. And I feel like once we equip a few, they will go out and then also reach those other youth. I've witnessed it myself. So I'm optimistic in that sense.
And when you look at some of the the most powerful social movements, in quasi recent history, you look at for instance Fred Hampton. Yes. Fred Hampton, got involved when he was 13, 14, and by the time he was, 18, 19, I mean, he was he was without a doubt, with a boss, and you saw the age he was when they gunned him down, So, and then you look at many of the original Black Panthers. I mean, these were young brothers and sisters, young in their early 20s, late teens, 19, 18.
I just want a quick quote. George Jackson.
Yeah, George
said,
Jackson.
Patience has its limits, and taking it too far, and it's cowardice.
Yeah.
So they were very instrumental of being active in their time.
Solomon, do you think that it is okay? So we have a different generation coming up. Let's say some in their 20s on the college campuses and so forth. The apathy that we are seeing, where it seems like they're completely disinterested in the plight of black people in this society. Is it possible that it's just that the face of racism has changed? And they're not acquainted with you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is that possible?
Yeah, it is
where
possible.
it's not easy for them to identify it, where you can look and say that's racist, and they're like, no, I don't think it's racist.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, that's definitely possible. And I would say that the 8 years that Obama was in the office, like a lot of people had this false sense of like, you know, the imaginary, you know, reality, this euphoria, and they just thought, you know, there's a black face occupying the White House.
Mm-hmm. So
we're good. It didn't matter whether the results, you know, prove that and show that or not. You know, it didn't matter whatsoever, because quite frankly, you know, black people continue to, you know, reap the unfortunate benefits of living in a white settler colony. And very little change besides the fact that they felt good that there was a black person in office. You know, but black people continue to be incarcerated, continue to be gunned down in the streets, you know, and so very little, if anything, changed, you know, and to go back to what you were saying about folks going home, I mean, I can't tell you how many black college students that I've met that told me that before they met me or met somebody else that was, you know, progressive on campus, had progressive views or, you know, revolutionary views, that they were told by their parents when they come on campus, don't get involved in any black stuff, you know, kind of mixed in. Without a doubt, don't get involved in any, you know, in any black stuff and you know, any protests. And we're told this by their parents. But the funny thing is that these hypocritical parents and even folks that don't have kids, and I've met folks that don't have kids that are college administrators, you know, professors or administrators. These hypocrites will get in front of students and teach black history courses or African American history courses and talk about King and talk about X and talk about, you know, Fannie Lou Hamer and talk about Ida B. Wells. But these folks, when it comes time to do something or to speak out on something, you can't find them. They'll be hiding behind their keyboard, under their desk. They won't say anything. And they're a bunch of hypocrites, because when you look at to the point of your whole show, you look at apathy. What did Dr. King said? You know, to paraphrase him, he said that, you know, those of us, you know, that if you know about evil that's being perpetrated and you decide not to speak out against it, you become as culpable as the perpetrators. And that's, you know, and it goes on, and that's the moment that we begin to die, that our lives begin to have no meaning.
And I have a quote here from Martin Luther King. He says, never be afraid to do what's right, especially if the well-being of a person or animal is at stake. Society's punishments are small compared to the wounds we inflict on our own soul when we look the other way. And that's from Martin Luther King. And that goes into my question as you were shooting off all the names of all the strong, powerful people that helped shape our existence for the better. Right. So why do we admire those like Martin and Malcolm and Jesus, but refuse to follow in their footsteps? I mean, those are the people that were out front, that were doing the work, that were making things happen. They were actually instrumental. Those in their corners were instrumental in changing the dynamics of our lives. So why is it that we will sit and admire those people, but don't put foot behind their work?
Because we've been locked into this whole mentality that, you know, what's trendy is what I'm gonna go ahead and sell. You know, Trayvon Martin was shot down. You know, you saw it for a month after, everyone's wearing hoodies and this, that, and the other, and then the movement completely dies out. But people just start wearing hoodies, and that's great to, you know, to bring awareness if it's going to be sustained. Right. But it wasn't sustained, whatsoever. And I think that we've become locked into this whole kind of notion of what it means to be an activist. We see a lot of social media revolutionaries, will click this or like this or whatever. But when it comes time to go into a community meeting or forum where it means, and we're just asking for a couple hours from you a month to just come and meet so we can organize and break out into subgroups and we can start to take this on, because as the Tanzanian, proverb said, many hands make light work,
Right.
But, folks are not willing to do that. And when, and so it's interesting that you bring up, Martin and Malcolm and so forth, because you look at, for instance, we're coming up, we're coming up towards heading straight towards, once again, Martin Luther King's, holiday, and you'll see, and that's the sickening thing about it. You'll see these white liberals that are, members of Congress that will come out and speak about him, and they're the same folks, the same MFers that will, support wars, that will bomb nations. King was completely opposed to that, completely opposed to it. But they do that because it's trendy and it's convenient, and they know that the masses, the hoi polloi, the people out there, their constituents, they know that those folks have very little critical thinking skills, and so that they can put stuff out there, and those folks haven't been exposed to the large breadth of King, the last 3.5 years, 4 years of his life that caused him to become persona non grata by almost every major, outlet in the United States. What caused him to be assassinated? What caused him, to be hated by members of even of his own, own community? They haven't been exposed to that. They haven't been exposed to that speech. April 4th. 1967, a year to the day in which he was killed, when he referred to the U.S. government as the greatest purveyor of violence on the face of the earth, and referred to the three evils that plagued America, and when he referenced, capitalism, military-industrial complex, and obviously racism, and so they haven't been exposed to that. So they've been taught by white liberals themselves, implicitly. They've been taught by white liberals even about their own heroes and sheroes, and so the version that they get of Dr. King is this like little cute, cuddly, fuzzy, whatever. And as long as we continue to allow ourselves to be taught by folks that don't have our community's best interests in hand, white liberals, white conservatives, as long as we continue to follow the narrative that they put out there about our history and our heroes and sheroes, we're going to continue to have this reimagination, this revisitation, history being basically being remade.
Yeah, because that letter from the Martin King letter from the Birmingham jail was, oh my God, that was just powerful.
The first 50 churches he went to, the first 50 churches he went to, first 50 black churches he went to, turned him down. And then they were Johnny-come-latelys when the civil rights movement started to pick up. Right. Then they jumped on. But the first 50 black churches he went to turned him down. Said, "No, you're not gonna invoke politics in the pulpit."
Most 30. I mean, he only had like 30% of the backing of black people at the time. The height of his movement.
Right.
Only 3 out of 10 black people were. Most blacks thought he was too radical.
Yeah, exactly.
Stirring too much trouble up.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
What percentage of this apathy that we are seeing in our community is really us taking on sort of the mind of the oppressor, as far as being individualistic thinking or being of an individualistic mind versus a collective? How much of it is that? Because I feel like most people who go to school, they get somewhere in life with a success, whatever they want to call it, financially. They move out of the communities because everything now is geared towards they want to rub shoulders with whites.
Right.
You know what I mean? Live in their neighborhood, send their kids to their schools, and then you produce another generation of apathetic black, because they're going to school with these people that they look, this is what I need to aspire to. So how much of that apathy that we're seeing is really us really internalizing the ways of our oppressor?
A lot. a lot. I mean, we've been politically domesticated because white liberals have told us over and over, and I'm not advocating, trust me, I look at the camera, no way, shape, form, or fashion am I saying vote for Republicans whatsoever. I'm saying don't vote for either of that two-party dictatorship known as the Democrats and Republicans. But I'm just mentioning the Democratic Party because 96% of the African community in the United States, black folks, vote Democrat.
No matter what.
And we subsist on that.
No
that
matter
Democratic Party plantation. So we've been politically domesticated, and we're just talking about King and X, and the two of them both warned us about white liberals. King made a speech in Frogmore, South Carolina. Targeting white liberals. And they knew that they're without a doubt are foxes or wolves in sheep's clothing. Without a doubt, they come around every election cycle and present themselves. And so, we, as you said, we've taken those narratives and we've kind of, morphed, allowed our minds to be morphed over by their way of thinking, their ideologies, and so forth.
Were we always like this, or there was a change, a turning point, as far as apathy is concerned? Were we more involved at some part of our history in this society?
I think so. I mean, I think that there have always been people. I mean, going back to, even before, Malcolm X. I mean, Malcolm X. There was a lot of black folks that hated him, thought he was stirring stuff up and making things worse. And it's like people were like, "What are you talking about? How is he making things any worse than what it already is by him speaking out about facts?" You know what I'm saying? and if more of us, insulated him and spoke out in favor of him, he'd be more insulated and more protected, and unfortunately, we'll come back to that, but so there's always been folks who have been willing. I mean, Harriet Tubman had to warn these Negroes, like, listen, if you turn around, because some got scared and wanted to turn around, and she's like, go ahead, you turn around, I'm gonna put some caps in your back, there were some folks that were petrified and thought that they were programmed, programmed to thinking that this is our lot in our life. Our lot in life is to be the slave to the white man. And once we die, because this is what they told us, because once you die, then you will go to the kingdom of heaven, and everything will be, and you'll be rewarded how you served us. See, look what it says in the Bible. Look, it said you're supposed to serve us, and they, and so. And
then they teach their kids that.
Exactly. And those elements have already been there, but in terms of right now, I think that we're in a period where there are more distractions than ever before, with all the different social media and all the different versions of the only versions of hip hop that they choose to promulgate on the radio stations, because they're not going to play Dead Prez, not going to play No Ruby Sale, they're not going to play Immortal Technique. Can go on and on and on. They're going to play the stuff that has been greenlighted by a bunch of white folks, a bunch of white men that. It's too political to talk about police brutality, but it's not too political, young brother, to refer to black women as B's and H's. It's not too political to talk about killing other black men. We will give you the green light, and we'll let you play. We'll let you get on the microphone all day. So the distractions are much more, I think, prevalent because of the shape of media. How pervasive media has expanded, and we don't utilize it right. And I'll end on this real quick, but I think that if you go back to the 60s and 70s, which I wasn't even born in the 60s. I was born in the early 70s, but so I can't speak on this firsthand. But being a student of history and listening to what elders have told me, it seemed that it was much more. It was much more enabling or easy to convince black folks that something's amiss, and you're not going to pull in everybody to become a member of this organization or this movement, but it was easier to get folks to pull them in to be a part of a movement, something that was bigger than them.
Bus boycott,
exactly, to be something or Operation Breadbasket. We're going to boycott this, that, and the other. I mean, folks.
Or even the whole Assata Shakur and how they broke her out of jail, and what that took, that organization, and all the hush voices and what that took.
Right.
I wonder how much does church or religion in general play a role in us being so submissive and subservient.
Love thy neighbor, forgive thine enemy.
Right.
Those
right.
teachings. It plays a bigger part than we're really willing to admit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're going to some place every week for at least an hour, and the man you look up to, a woman that you admire, and they're telling you that, you know, life is good as long as you have a good job, and God's going to bless you with a brand new car, and all the material things, but never really get down to the constructs of our suffering. You know, and why we're suffering, and what we need to do to push back against that. If that never takes place, then I mean, how effective?
How is it helping you? How is it helping you in any shape, form, or fashion?
Yeah.
You know, and how easily it is for us to make excuses and to dismiss history.
And just love everybody.
Look at even the constructs of Western religions. I mean, in looking at specifically, if you look at Christianity, how this wasn't presented as something like, oh, hey, black folks, you have the option, you know, this, that, and the other. No, it was forced upon us. It was forced upon indigenous Americans from Canada all the way down to Argentina, forced upon them. You know, as some African, chief said, they came with the Bible. By the time it was all said and done, we had the Bible, they had the land. They had the land, and so. But even those brothers and sisters who use the Bible in revolutionary ways, such as Nat Turner or Richard Allen, with Black liberation theology, that's something that is very much in the minority right now. That's something very much in the minority, where you look at those brothers and sisters that were unfortunately, murdered in cold blood in South Carolina by Dylann Roof. I mean, you had people that were even a part of that, whatever, that said, we're going to pray for him. We're going to pray for him. Ask forgiveness. And it's just me personally. I can't wrap myself around that. And that kind of goes into the narrative. Like, you go into the church, and there are pastors. Yeah, there are some revolutionary pastors like Jeremiah Wright, who speak truth, truth to power, and confront injustice head on. But we saw even how Obama quickly abandoned him, and how many people, despite knowing Jeremiah Wright's history longer than even Obama, as soon as that happened, they sided with Obama because they were so in love with the idea that we have a brown face at the head of the plantation, and he's a Democrat. It was because we know if Obama was a Republican, they wouldn't have had that many black folks supporting it. It was him coupled with the fact that he was a Democrat, but they abandoned Jeremiah Wright. So he and other brothers and sisters who are like him are far and few between. But there are, unfortunately, a lot of pastors that are in front of their pulpit, as you mentioned, every Sunday, in some cases, Saturdays, and they put out that narrative there that we're going to pray away gentrification. We're going to pray away the prison industrial complex. So we're not going to sit here and we're not going to use this space here in this church and other days during the week, and we're going to organize. There are certainly some churches out there that are very much like that. In D.C., Grayland Hagler and
Union Temple.
Exactly. But there are way too many black churches that are complete antithesis of that, and just like you said, compliant. We're just going to pray our way out of it. We're going to pray our way out of it.
This during this thing that just happened with the whole H&M hoodie.
The monkey.
So I'm more of a. I'm not really reactionary when these things happen. I kind of like sit and I watch for a minute, and I got sick to my stomach because I couldn't help, and I'm still processing it, but I can't help but to think, is this an experiment? The way that our switch is just turned on, off as a people is insane to me. It's like almost like someone is controlling the on-off switch of our people, pulling on.
Let's be reactionary. Let's jump on
but
this.
But then they decide, okay, off now. Okay, let's give them this now, on. And it's something to watch. And I was paying attention to it. I couldn't even comment on it because I'm just like, what is happening? Because everyone is going to go back to their regular lives, and then something is going to come up. And I feel like most people don't even understand racism. They just jump on the bandwagon of, I guess I should be mad because most black people are mad.
Exactly.
That's
exactly,
real.
exactly,
That's really what's happening.
And if I might say
It's called
something,
groupthink.
if I might say something before I tackle, I mean, I'm so glad you brought that. And you mentioned something before about the youth. This was years ago. This was when Obama first became president. ABC News sent in Robin Roberts to the Deep South. And I believe it was either Alabama or Mississippi. And she went in, and they sent her in there to ask, interview these like little African American kids. Probably, I would say, maybe ages 9, 10, 11, something like that. And just ask them questions. Do you think? And just ask just a superficial question. Do you think there's a racism problem now in America? This, that, and the other, and then the kids would respond, no, I don't think. I think it used to happen, but I don't think it's happening anymore because no one's called me the N-word. No one's called me the N-word. So when you just said, people don't even understand racism, you're exactly right, because there are adults whose thinking is even lower than those kids. You know what I'm saying? Who they have an excuse. They're kids. They haven't been exposed to it yet.
Right.
But these adults think that racism, the extent of racism is, oh, not a lot of people, white folks, are calling me the N-word or such and such anymore. Not understanding that racism is the system of power plus prejudice interwoven together.
Yeah.
To hell with that idiot, you know what I'm saying, that wants to, bucktooth, hillbilly wants to call you the N-word.
Right.
As long as he doesn't have the power to gentrify your community or to send a bunch of police officers in there and to gun down and to do, to institute jump outs and all this kind of stuff. To hell with him.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, he does have that power. All right? Because a lot of those Klan members, they wear the blue. They wear the blue, and they have badges, and they carry those, and they're police chiefs, or they're governors, or they're prosecutors, or school principals, and they have that power. So that's what racism is, and that's why it's so nefarious, because right now it's sitting right underneath so many people's noses, but they're so oblivious to what to look for.
I think
they don't know.
The media plays a huge role.
Plays a huge role.
We take our cues from what we see.
Because the media is defining for us what racism is, and we're allowing it.
Yeah.
In other words, you need to be upset about this, but you don't need to be upset about these laws we're about to pass, which is really more racist than this little boy wearing a sweater.
Exactly.
That's my point.
Exactly.
And then when you turn on the TV, and you can turn to any channel, and you can see black folk and white folks getting along. Those random acts of kindness.
Exactly.
Getting along together and working together. Then in your mind and perception things, the race, the race issue is all good. And they do that not only for us here, but for worldwide. Yeah. So the people worldwide can be put asleep to what's really going on under the covers. But I want to know who, a lot of us will say things like, we give that stuff too much attention. If you don't focus so much of your attention on all that, then then it wouldn't be. What is your take on that type of thinking? That if we just ignore that the problem exists, that it won't be a problem.
I think it's completely asinine. I think it's completely asinine, backwards, and that person that says that, and I know that there have been people that said that. I've heard people. I've heard people that said that.
To carry their lives that way.
They need to move aside. Those people need not to ever, give that information. If that's the way you think, keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. It becomes very destructive when you start to give that to impressionable, youth, teenagers, and even younger than that.
Because how is ignoring a problem going to solve it?
Exactly. Exactly. And remember, and that's why I keep going back to 2008 to 2016. Remember that speech that Obama made on Father's Day? When he and also the speech that he made to the NAACP, where he said, yes, our kids have to work twice as hard, but no time for excuses. And listen, we know as black people, if anyone in this country understands that we have to work twice as hard, to be able to subsist in this society, or to be able to achieve some semblance of success in this society, We understand that. We've been doing it for generations, for we've been doing it. But it don't make it right. It don't make it right. Yeah. It doesn't make it right. Yeah. So people would hear that and they were like, yeah, see, we don't need to make no excuses. He's saying whatever. Hard. Who said whatever? You know what I'm saying? I've been to college, I've been all, through grad school and all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? That don't make it right. And my achievements, as Paul Robeson said, don't speak for the masses of our people. Individual success has nothing to do with the masses of our people. It has nothing to do with that. So don't ever get it twisted, and don't ever think that your success, because you worked harder, that the person out there on the street is not busting their ass to achieve something. Don't ever think that. It's because things fell your way. But there are people out there right now that got 2 and 3 jobs, and that if things don't change, they will continue to work like a dog for the rest of their lives. And so they're not working hard? Of course they're working hard. This society, this structure, this capitalist, this vulture-like capitalist system is not set up for anything else but haves and have-nots. Right. They don't want a classless society. That's right. And so if we just keep our mouths shut and don't do nothing about it, then this structure, this economic system, this class-based structure, this race society will never ever change with that rubbish that people put out there. Never change.
Good point. And I really think that a lot of us feel like if we have our own little cubby holes on earth, if we good over here with a good government job and a Mercedes Benz and food on our table every night, then life is good. Yeah. Life is grand. But in the vast majority of your people starving and struggling, I think it's a very self-centered, selfish approach to take to life.
So what can we do about this? About the issue of apathy that we're seeing? What are some of the things that we can start doing to change that?
Well, I think a major issue, I mean, you mentioned it before, maybe 15 minutes ago, Al Kamar, you said media. And I think that's a critical issue, that we have to support and build up our own media community by community. We know now that because of these little smartphone devices, that if anything, and by which our brothers and sisters in the Congo are perishing, because of the mineral that goes in that. But if we're going to make sure that it's not in vain, we need to use these devices, and we need to start and create our own media. And expose our community to, and not everyone's going to accept that information, but you are going to get some people that are going to become, as they say, woke because of that information. Right. I think it starts there. I think it's important to those of us that have influence, even when you have this community media, to have a program set up where you allow people to talk about to say next week at such and such time we're going to have a community meeting at this church or this mosque or this community center, and we're going to have a community meeting, and get people involved. Don't just dole out, you doing all the speaking, I'm doing this, that, and the other, but give people responsibilities. That's buy-in right there. That's buy-in. Go out with their clipboards and allow people to sign up, because there's a lot of brothers and sisters in the community that have some powerful ideas and talents. Yeah. And so we have to start reclaiming our communities by getting our communities involved. But honestly, a lot starts with the media. And the other big caveat is we talk about the schooling systems. We talk about the education. We know that the school systems are working the way they're supposed to. Everyone says they're broken, but these school systems function just the way they're supposed to, especially school systems in predominantly black and brown communities.
That's right.
So those are some things that we have to start working in that until we can start to get more and more progressive thinking Africans on educational boards in different communities and municipalities, that part of these community forums and meetings that we have should be workshops that folks in the community that have information. You might have information about economics. She might have information about contemporary African history, Black history. Somebody might have information about political education. Not just watching out for the police, but also political education in terms of understanding understanding what redlining means, what gentrification means, and educating the young people. Because somebody mentioned on your feed, young people, youth are like sponges. Yeah. They are. Yep. Right. If we had the minds of young people right now, you and I, we could learn 2 and 3 additional languages right now like that, because they pick things up. They just have to be exposed to information in the right way. Don't dumb it down for them. Package it to a level that whatever, but make sure that information is still the same,
Yeah.
but you're just packaging it
Yeah.
for a different age demographic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I find in our community a lot of times, what we will do is we'll shoot out suggestions and advice for other people to do.
Yeah.
What y'all need to do is this.
Yeah, right.
Y'all should
all
be
the
doing
time.
that.
All the time.
As opposed to saying to yourself, well, you know, if I know that
Yeah.
that's what needs to be done, then why don't I just take
Right.
some initiative to get it done?
Exactly.
So we always looking for other people to do what we, you know, what we think
We're
needs
able
to be
to-
done.
Yeah.
Someone actually made a point to Wade. He said, I may be late with this, but if you want to get the youth involved, give them your spot. Media influences the masses. Get 3 young people in the image of yourself to replace you. Young people will move the masses. It's hard for them to hear from us because they feel like we don't get today's world. But
Yeah.
their God is down with other young people, which is what I was saying. We got to use the youth to reach the youth.
Yeah.
Teach these 3 what you know about media and history and let them loose.
Yeah.
That's their opinion.
I
Can
love that
Can
idea.
I respond to that? And I think it was Wade.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing up that point because that's exactly what we do at Your World News. We have, historically put cameras in the hands of youth and for free of charge, and we have, had discussions with youth from college age all the way down to, I would say, middle school age, and educating them about the history of black media, not just within this country, but worldwide. So African media, any place where you find people of African ancestry, to inspire them that said, this is within you, and this is what you can do, and this is how you do it. And so, I totally agree. So that if you're in a position, especially with a microphone, or if you're a producer, or if you're a director, or if you're a cameraman or camerawoman, that you can mentor at least one young person, whether that person is 18 years old or 17, because we know in African society you're a youth all the way into your 30s, so even that person's 24, mentor a young person behind you how to do such and such, and then put them in the driver's seat.
Right.
I've had young people flip it around and interview me.
Right.
and interview me and ask the most insightful questions.
Yeah.
Right.
And have gone on, to do some amazing things that I couldn't even imagine of doing. Because some of these people that you teach behind you are going to, have even greater capabilities than us. I mean, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Folks didn't understand until they fed him with that information that this guy was, was the truth, was the truth, and it was at that time when he got that information that now I believe there's a lot of Malcolm X's rolling around there. I believe there's a lot of Ella Bakers out there right now, and they just need that spark. They just need that
Even on those
spark.
street corners.
Right, yeah.
And that's what we need
That's
to
right.
remember, because oftentimes
That's
when we
right.
talk about the youth that we're targeted are the ones in college and so forth. They are youth that are out in these streets that are incarcerated with brilliant minds.
Right.
That's
And
it.
we are too afraid of them to even engage
Exactly.
them.
Right.
And we are
Exactly.
missing out. That's a gold mine in our community.
Right.
Because they don't act the way we think they should act. They don't
Yeah.
talk the way we think. They don't listen to the
we're
music
afraid
that
of
we
them.
find. We are afraid of them.
Yeah.
But like you said, they are brilliant
Yeah.
Right.
when you
Right.
sit and talk to them. You know what I mean?
What about
You're right.
giving? I know there's people out here that'll listen to this and probably even be inspired by it, but still won't move to action. But I think that, like you said, it's going to always be. We're not going to get 100% of the people on
Right.
board. But I'm of mind that if some of those people would at least give their dollars towards those people who are making a difference, and a lot of times we don't do that.
Yeah.
We'll take our money and we'll go and we'll spend it lavishly on other
Right.
things personal to make our personal lives feel
Right.
better,
Right.
as opposed to giving some of that to help the greater good.
Right.
So, I mean, that would be one of my suggestions for people if they're looking and thinking, well, what can I do?
Right.
There's always something we can do, even if you're not doing anything physically. Just give of your money
Yeah.
towards those things you're passionate about.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I totally agree, and to follow that, if you don't have the money and you don't have you believe that you don't have the wherewithal this time to speak out about, I'm not going to stick my neck out about this, or I'm not going to whatever. Fine, if that's the case, then just give the information to them. Say, hey, I heard this show, and send the link.
Yeah.
Inbox them. Send the link to the show and let them watch it. Expose them to information. Don't sit on it. You may not want to do anything with it.
Right.
And okay, all right, that I don't want to say that's fine, but if you don't want to do anything, no one can force you.
Right.
But don't sit on that information.
Right.
Expose somebody to it, or somebody's to it.
Right.
Expose them, to that information. Because once they get that information, all right, you were talking about actual currency before. To me, that's like social capital now that they're exposing. Let them give them that social capital and take that, let them deposit it in their banks right here, their mental banks. And let them make the decision whether they want to go and speak out about something, or lead a movement, or start an organization, because organizations will outlive us all, or start an organization amongst their peers who are all in their teens or all in their 20s. But if we don't give them information, how the hell are they going to know?
Yeah.
How the hell are they going to know? I mean, and on the end of this, you look at so many movements. I mean, you even go to our ancestral homeland. And you go all the way down to Azania, presently known as South Africa, and you look at 1976 and the Soweto uprising. These were youth.
Yep.
These were youth that got out in the street and said, "No, you're not going to force me to speak Afrikaans.
Yep.
No, you're not. I'm going to speak Xhosa. I'm going to speak Zulu." And look, and they went out in the streets.
Yeah.
And yes, unfortunately, they were, gunned down by those, barbaric animals.
Yeah.
But that was youth.
Yeah.
Even now in South Africa,
SASA, the South African Student Organization,
Yep.
and BCM, the Black Conscious Movement. These were young people that Steve Biko was inspiring and so forth. So
when we look at it, it's suffice to say that no real change has ever come unless there are people who stood up.
Right.
Those are the ones who produce change in societies. Those who say no.
Yeah.
Say no and stand up against imperialism.
Yeah.
So we have like 4 minutes left, but I do want to get in. I have some quotes that I do want to share, but I do want the people to know where they can reach you if they're interested about, more about what you do.
If anyone's interested, it would be a pleasure if you were interested and want to get involved with Your World News or any of the stuff that we're doing in any of my work. I've written 5 books, and I'd be and I had 2 copies I was going to bring to you guys, and I'll still get them to you. But I'd like to even be able to send folks some copies of my work. You can go to yourworldnews.org, and that's not spelled any funky way. It's yourworldnews.org, yourworldnews.org, or you can go to SolomonComissiong.com. That's SolomonComissiong.com. And that's where you can find more of the work that we do. We've done documentaries on, like I said, on hip hop, on police brutality, on a range of things. And when you watch these documentaries and these pieces, you'll see different people that are involved. But a lot of folks don't know, like behind the camera oftentimes, we're college students. We're people younger than that, that were involved in some of the stuff that we do. And so, if you're watching right now, whether you're 90 or if you're 19, and you'd like to get involved in your, with the work that we do at Your World News, you want to write a piece, we'll get up there. We'll put it on our website. If you want to get involved in the media stuff, contact us. And we'd love to work with you and maybe have you start, co-hosting some shows, coming on as a guest and do some stuff, because your words matter. The only caveat is that if it's something that CNN or MSNBC is going to report and the way they report it, we're not interested in that. We're interested in hard-hitting stuff, critical information that is being suppressed by, the dominant hegemony, that rules this country, and that's white supremacy and white supremacy organizations and outlets, whether it's MSNBC or Fox News or the like.
Well, we certainly thank you, Solomon, for gracing us today.
It's an honor. Your work is very inspiring to myself and so many others.
And your passion. And, every chance I get, I'm there at the University of Maryland, with some of the stuff that you do there. And so, you are one of those powerful people in our community that's making a difference. So we appreciate you.
I appreciate it. I'm humbled. I really am. I'm humbled to be a part of this.
Here on the Empower Hour. And I did want to just get these couple of more quotes out because it relates to apathy. What we're talking about is minding our own business killing us. And this was a quote from Malcolm X. He says, if we can't talk about the problems in our communities, then we are the problems in our communities. Lady Shabazz says, fear is our new slave master. We don't want to endure the consequences of standing up, but our inaction will bring on the worst consequences. Also, Asada Shakur says, people get used to anything. The less you think about your oppression, the more your tolerance for it grows. After a while, people just think oppression is the normal state of things. But to become free, you have to be acutely aware of being a slave. And these last two quotes are coming from our brother Solomon right here. He says, we cannot realistically hope to more broadly mobilize and organize if large segments of society are dumbed down and socially apathetic. He also says it's time to collectively speak out. If not for our generation, do it for the next. Silence teaches children a dangerous lesson, that evil and injustice is acceptable. They deserve better than what evil, greed, and apathy have brought in today's warped world. There you have it, family. That is our Empower Hour right here on the eLife Media Network. You can find us here every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m., like clockwork, with a new topic of discussion every week. Hanifa, you wanted to say anything?
No, we're just glad to have Solomon on, and keep an ear out as well with Solomon with the debates that come up on the University of Maryland campus.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Brother Edward X.
Yes.
A big part of that.
Yes.
So until next week, take care, family, and thanks for tuning in. Peace. And share.
Yeah.
That's it. All
That's
right.
good. Thank you.
Woo!
Pleasure.
Wow.
That was a great show. You guys
revved it up for a minute.